One of the worst impact of the recent rise in the cost of living has been a parallel rise in food security. In Victoria, we have witnessed an increase in both the number of people accessing food from relief services and the volume of food distributed by this service throughout the community. The community heard that there are many factors contributing to food insecurity. The rising price of food is the most obvious, and we present data that shows this. The problem does not exist in isolation, though. Food price must be considered in context of the inflation seen in other essential food services, including energy and housing. Unfortunately for many Victorians, the challenge caused by this rise in cost of living has occurred at the same time as they have experienced critical financial stresses, like unemployment, wage stagnation, and inadequate income support. Food insecurity has a dramatic impact on individual and family. Throughout this inquiry, the committee heard how the lack of access to adequate, nutritious and culturally appropriate food negatively impact both physical and mental health. Some Victorians also experience social isolation, withdrawing from activities due to financial constraint and unwarranted stigma associated with hardship. That's why it's imperative for government to act. The committee acknowledged that the power in this area largely lies in the hand of the Commonwealth. This includes how cooperation and competition are regulated, as well as the level of income support provided by job seekers and aged pension. Accordingly, the committee has recommended the Victorian Government advocate for an increase in federal income support and try to break the link between poverty and food insecurity. However, the Victorian Government also has the capability to act. For example, it can look at increasing food for supporting food relief agencies and those schools providing help to the students who are turning up school hungry. The committee also believes that government should establish Victorian food security strategies, including appointing a Minister for Food. This would help to shift the Victorian approach of food security from a focus on relief to building resilience. The committee acknowledged that this is a complex and ambitious goal. It believed that such approach would best position Victoria to be able to meet our immediate and long-term food security need. I would like to thank the individuals and organisations who made submission to this inquiry and spoke with us at our public hearing. The evidence you provided was both enlightening and valuable in helping the committee understand these issues and identify potential solutions. I would also like to thank my fellow committee members for their hard work, cooperation throughout these inquiries, the third inquiries that we have finished for this year. Finally, I would please thank the very hard-working committee secretaries, Julie Barnes, Adele Siddiqui, Kathleen Connolly, and Patrick O'Brien. I commend this report to the House.
Ms Batchelor.
To speak as a member of the Legal and Social Issues Committee on the reported food security in Victoria. It was a really important inquiry that the committee undertook, dealing with an incredibly pressing issue for so many Victorians, and that is how to put food on the kitchen table. We heard some pretty devastating stories of people who were unable, for a range of reasons, to properly and adequately feed themselves and their families. The committee heard of the work that's being done by some really spectacular food relief organisations in the charitable sector helping provide food relief. Some important work that the state government has been doing through our food relief programs to provide support to those food relief organisations, but also the support that the state government has been providing through the School Breakfast Clubs program, which is providing an important and nutritious meal at the start of the day for school children. They are some actions that the state can take to improve those efforts, but the committee also heard that there are broader pressures and broader issues across both the economy in terms of the way that the supermarket system and competition in the supermarket system is hurting price competition for food, and that as a contributor to food insecurity. But fundamentally, the committee heard that poverty is the biggest driver of food insecurity in the country, and through the alleviation of poverty is the way we deal with the underlying drivers and causes of food insecurity. And the committee made a series of recommendations about measures that the nation should take, calls on the Commonwealth to take to improve income support, to support wages growth and job security, and to set up measures to better understand the drivers of poverty in this country. I want to thank my fellow members of the committee for the collegiate way the inquiry was undertaken, and obviously the incredibly hard-working committee staff who are doing a power of work on parliamentary inquiries for the Legislative Council committees at the moment.
Mr. Puglielli.
Thank you, President. I'd like to begin by thanking the Secretariat and all the staff who worked so hard compiling these reports, ensuring the inquiry runs smoothly and that the experiences of what is going on out in the community are given a platform, speaking truth to power. People have been telling us for months and months they are struggling to afford food at the supermarket checkout, and access to food is becoming more difficult for people as they face this cost of living crisis. The inquiry heard from people in the community experiencing poverty and hardship, food relief organisations, government departments, experts, key bodies, even Coles and Woolworths themselves. We covered a lot of ground in this inquiry with respect to policy. Clear recommendations are there that should in principle act as a starting point for government to just recognise that there is a crisis of food affordability facing the community, recognising food as a human right, exploring potential penalties to deter the wastage of food along the supply chain. The inquiry has also recommended the adoption of the Vacho Food Path Report as a means of supporting First Nations communities with policies and resources to advance their goals and aspirations for food sovereignty. That report includes recommendations for government such as removing GST from fresh food, banning junk food marketing in all its forms, including unhealthy sports sponsorship. However, despite the intention of the inquiry being to look at options to lower the cost of food, the report being tabled today has a duopoly-sized hole in the report's recommendations. Labor and the Liberals have teamed up to block recommendations to address supermarket price gouging in the report, deflecting any accountability, despite the inquiry hearing resounding evidence that governments should be doing more to intervene. People can look at the back of the report to see recorded votes on suggested recommendations that would hold Coles and Woolworths accountable, and can see for themselves Labor and Liberal members teaming up to block these proposals that would make food affordable. Why would Coles and Woolworths ever lower their prices when Labor and the Liberals are giving them a free pass? I think people will be pretty disappointed, despite all the evidence that Labor and the Liberals have teamed up to throw away this opportunity to finally do something about supermarkets price gouging.
Ms. Galea.
Thank you, President. I rise to share some brief comments on this important report that the Legal and Social Issues Committee has undertaken, that the inquiry into food security in Victoria. And at the outset, I would also like to acknowledge the, as ever, extremely hard work of our Secretariat, notably Patrick O'Brien, and who was ably supported by Julie Barnes, Caitlin Connolly and Adil Siddiqui. And I'd also like to acknowledge fellow committee members and indeed our chair as well, Mr. Liu. It was a very, very important topical inquiry, as other members have outlined, in light of the cost of living challenges that Victorians are facing. And we did hear from a range of stakeholders, from industry to government to affected people, and most importantly as well, I think others would agree, with food relief organisations. We heard from some very, very impressive groups, including Eat Up Australia, amongst others. Indeed, we also heard about the impact of what it means to be providing free school breakfasts to all primary school students across Victoria, which is a program that this government has been rolling out across all government public schools, which is a terrific thing to see, a terrific thing to see the impact that is having on young Victorians. Indeed, we did hear from a range of witnesses, including the major retailers, who were extremely supportive indeed of backing in the Premier's announcement earlier this year of introducing tougher penalties for those people who violently and aggressively assault frontline retail workers. We know that we have challenges that people have with cost of living, but there is no excuse for taking that out on the hard-working staff that stock the shelves, that man the checkouts, and that otherwise serve customers. So it was good to see unanimous support for what is also a very strong union campaign by the SDA that has been backed in by this state government, and to see that backed in by those retailers as well. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing those laws come into effect.